The ANC has instructed its Disciplinary Committee to halt the DC hearings of former ANC President Jacob Zuma. Meanwhile, ANC Secretary General Fikile Mbalula has surreptitiously referred to President Zuma and the MK party as rebel breakaway groupings emanating from factions mutating into opposition parties, echoing the words of former ANC President Thabo Mbeki that these actions are of counter-revolutionaries that have infiltrated the ANC. Joining me to comb through these statements is Professor Bheki Mngomezulu, who's a political analyst. Prof, good evening. Thank you so much for your time. Really do appreciate it. Those are heavy words. I've never heard them used before in the ANC. Factions mutating into opposition parties, rebel breakaway groupings, all of these sorts of words describing, well, MK and I guess all those who have gone through similar seemingly rites of passage in politics in South Africa are quite heavy-weighted. Is this a sign that the ANC is taking this matter serious?
Good evening, Mr. Dixon. Good evening to your colleagues and good evening to your viewers. First of all, I must say that what is happening currently between the ANC and the MK party is regrettable, more especially because the statements that you are referring to uttered by former President Thabo Mbeki and then the SG of the ANC, Mr. Fikile Mbalula, and you might also have heard other leaders making pronouncements in their campaigns, including the likes of Matthew Polsa and others. So this is regrettable because it is unprovoked. It just comes voluntarily from the leaders. As to why they do it, I'm not too sure. Because under normal circumstances, during an election year, what you do when you go to the electorate, you just market your organization and indicate what we will be able to do, and then, of course, entice them and then persuade them to vote for you. In the case of the ANC, it's even better because it has been in office since 1994. So there are quite a number of things that these leaders can talk about which are positive to the country and to the electorate and say, this is what we've been able to do for you. These are the hurdles where we have not been able to achieve the goals we wanted to achieve, but this is the plan we have in place in the event that will give us a fresh and forget about talking about anybody else.
Staying on that, referring to counter-revolutionaries, the ANC Secretary General Fikile Mbalula has described them as the criminals, the corrupts, the factionalists and the careerists. In the same briefing, he's had to deal with questions and address the question around its candidate list, which the ANC has had to deal with over the last couple of weeks, which contain people who are fingered in the Zondo Commission of Inquiry. The sentiment is that every time the ANC is on track with its renewal project, that it is the counter-revolutionaries that attempt to derail that, as is the case with the MK party, if that logic is to be taken to its conclusion. Is it then a genuine attempt at taking a renewal message to the electorate if some of the people who are fingered in the Zondo Commission of Inquiry are still members and candidates on your list submitted to Parliament, while you're describing the counter-revolutionaries as the criminals, the corrupt, the factionalists and the careerists?
You know, Mr. Dixon, in English there is this word we call diction, which means the choice and usage of words. In times like this, whoever makes public statements have to be extra careful as to what message that person is conveying. The terms that you are referring to, which are cited from the SG of the ANC, are unwarranted. And in fact, they are dangerous in the sense that they have the potential to arouse emotions unnecessarily. Because at one point, some weeks ago, the same SG of the ANC referred to MK party not as a political party, but as a project. I remember asking the question, is this an indictment on the IEC? That it registered a project and not a political party. In the event that the answer is in the affirmative, what action has been taken against the IEC to say you were supposed to register political parties and independent candidates, but instead you registered a project? That was never followed up. So now you hear these terms that you are referring to, which in fact are denigrating in a way, in the sense that these parties, all of them, they've signed a pact with the IEC saying that we are going to behave ourselves well through what we say and through what we do so that we ensure that the elections are free, fair and credible. So the moment then we hear such statements in public, then we get consent as to what the reaction will be, and then if the other parties feel aggrieved and then make the same statements, what will the end result be? So that is unnecessary in my view.
Yeah. The ANC SG in that briefing has also said that they have instructed the ANC's Disciplinary Committee to halt the hearing of the disciplinary hearing of President Jacob Zuma to a later date yet to be determined, presumably after the elections. But at the same time, in the same briefing, also says that the ANC Disciplinary Committee is entirely an independent organization free of influence. One might ask if instructing the ANC Integrity Committee to withhold or to halt the disciplinary hearing, meanwhile, while saying that they're independent, are those two things mutually inclusive, or is there somewhat of a tense contradiction there?
Mr. Dixon, there is contradiction, and in fact, there are things that don't add up here. One question we need to ask is, what is the nature of the relationship between the NEC of the ANC, the top six of the ANC on the one hand, and then, of course, on the other hand, the NDC of the ANC? If there is open lines of communication, the question then becomes, when did the NDC decide to summon the former president to appear before it on Tuesday? If that decision was taken as a collective decision with the NEC, then of course we shouldn't be where we are. If indeed the NDC is a separate entity or an independent body, then they shouldn't be getting an instruction from the ANC as to what to do. So there is something that doesn't add up. It's either the lines of communication are not open, or there is something that you and I don't know, which only the SG and of course the chair of the NDC might be in a better position to answer.
Can one account as an instruction on when or when not to hold your disciplinary hearing as a material instruction that can influence the outcome, or is it merely a cosmetic instruction for operational purposes?
Whether it's for operational purposes, it doesn't really matter. The reality here is you have an NDC, which is supposed to be an independent entity. Of course, it works under the ANC, but then at no point can it take instructions from the ANC. So if this was presented to the NDC as a suggestion, we have done an assessment, government has done an assessment, and we are of the view that there might be political violence, then you present that to the NDC and then we let them make a determination. But then if it comes as an instruction, we have done our spade work, then we're giving you an instruction, put this a disciplinary hearing on hold until further notice. Then, of course, this disempowers the NDC, which might then give you questions as to whether it has teeth to bite or if it is indeed an independent entity.
Yeah, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you so much for your time.